In my 6th occupational therapy visit, we put together a wellness checklist. This is the occupational therapy program that I went through at GF Strong, which is the traumatic brain injury recovery place here in Vancouver. And this checklist is meant to serve you to make sure that you're doing all of the things that you need to be doing to give your brain the opportunity to recover from a brain injury. And what you're going to do is you're going to make your own tailored wellness checklist based off of the information that you have, plus the examples that I've given. And you're going to put it in a visible place. It's either going to be on the fridge or beside your computer at work or in your day planner, somewhere that you visit regularly. So if you're having a bad week or a crash response or things aren't going well, you can look at and review this checklist and go through it and check off, have I been doing these things that my brain needs in order for me to recover from this injury. So in this next video, I'm going to take you through my next occupational therapy visit. Hopefully you watched my previous videos, which have taken you through the activity tracker for 2 weeks, 1 to 2 weeks, where you identify the major drainers and the major boosters that you have during your work week, that is either recharging your battery in terms of boosters or draining your battery a lot in terms of drainers, and you need to manage those. And then hopefully you have a menu of boosters to pick from to be able to plan and pace your day properly. So the next thing that was done in my occupational therapy visits by GF Strong here in Vancouver was creating a wellness checklist. And this again may seem like all of the other activities trivial, but is actually pretty fundamental in terms of focusing on your recovery and making sure that you're giving your brain the things that it needs to recover from a brain injury. And I'll walk you through the example one that was given to me at GF Strong. The first thing on this checklist here is sleep. So a lot of times people who have concussions have issues falling asleep or staying asleep. The mind becomes very busy for some reason, or perhaps it's not getting the correct signals that it needs to be able to fall asleep, which was in my case, or perhaps your anxiety is just gone through the roof because anything is causing you pain. So regular sleep hygiene, any sleep specialist will give you this advice. If you go to a sleep specialist, they'll tell you to have a regular wake-up time and to also have a regular bedtime. And what that does is that it creates this routine, so your brain is expecting preparing for bed. Also getting ready for bed at a certain time if you need downtime before you go to bed. Stop looking at screens an hour before you go to bed. And making sure you're in bed at the same time per week. Rumination is something that happened to me quite a bit when I was recovering from my injury. I found it difficult to go to sleep. If you're lying in bed awake, one of the worst things you can do is actually stay in bed for an extended period of time, worrying that you can't sleep. And that's because you're actually teaching your brain to lie in bed awake when you remain in bed. So after 30 minutes, get out of bed, do something relaxing, such as reading a book or a magazine. So if you're not getting fundamental amount of sleep, it's going to impact your recovery, and I'm sure you'll notice it on the days where you didn't get enough sleep or the weeks where you're not getting enough sleep. During the first probably 6 to 8 months of my recovery, I needed between 10 and 12 hours of sleep. 10 was a minimum of sleep per night, which is a lot of sleep. And when you start factoring that into all the other things that you need to do, it does become quite a time requirement. But it's important to focus on the sleep aspect because your brain doesn't ever get to rest. So if you broke your leg or injured your knee, what a doctor would tell you was to put it in a cast and to put it up for a number of time and then let it rest to repair, and then start using it again after it's repaired. But the problem with a brain injury is that you can't ever turn off your brain. Even when you're sleeping, your brain is still working, and your brain is literally monitoring, governing every function that goes on in your body. So even when you're sleeping, it's monitoring your heart rate, it's monitoring your blood pressure, it's making sure that you get the correct hormones and enzymes to make sure that your body's getting the correct signals. It's sending messages to and from your gut and other parts of your body. And so even when you're sitting doing nothing, your brain is still processing information and it's still working. So sleep, very, very important. Next to sleep, I will put meditation. If you can meditate for 15 minutes 3 times a week, that will greatly assist your recovery to just start getting into that habit of how to, I guess, turn your brain off for periods of times. Or I shouldn't turn it off because turn it off because that puts a lot of pressure on it, on meditating, but just the whole mindfulness component will help. Brain breaks, we went through this in a previous video in the planning and pacing, making sure that you're taking at least a 5-minute break at least 3 times per day, and set reminders in your phone. So for some of you, this might be enough. For others of you, this might not be nearly enough. And you might actually need breaks, 15, 20 minutes every hour, depending on what it is that you're doing that day, how stressful it is, and how intensive it is what you're doing. But the key here is to make sure that you're doing them and that it's on your wellness checklist. Stress and anxiety management. So plan time for active relaxation, at least 4 days per week by using the tools on Anxiety Canada website. Or go to a yoga class once per week. For those of you who are not aware of this Anxiety Canada website, it's a really good tool. It has some very quick meditations on it, 3-minute breathing meditations that are very effective at getting your nervous system to calm down quickly. Nutrition. Nutrition is huge, and I think this is probably, at least for me, one of the most overlooked factors when recovering from a concussion. Eat regular meals, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and drink at least 6 cups of water per day. So some people, and I think I was one of them, was not getting the hungry cues for whatever reason. So I would be hungry and I wouldn't even notice that I was hungry. And then by the time that I ate, it was already too late, I'd crashed, and then my whole day was fucked up. So it took me way too long to learn that I needed to eat, once every 2 or 3 hours, even though I wasn't hungry, which, like, if you're a middle-aged woman or a woman over 30, you're probably thinking, what, you want me to eat, like, when I'm not hungry? Are you absolutely crazy? But I rest assured that it will be worth it in the end, and that your brain needs the energy. Also, what you are feeding it is very important, and nutrition is a whole other subject that, if people are interested in and find these videos useful, I can go into the nutrition component on what I learned during a course that I took. And then hydration. So hydration is very important. The brain is very sensitive to dehydration. I read one study that said that they can detect as little as a 2% dehydration in the brain, in your body. So if you are thirsty, you're already dehydrated, you should be drinking water continuously. Pacing, planning, and prioritizing. Write out to my to-do list at least 2 times per week and prioritize these items and schedule a framework into my day planner. Remember to spread out energy draining activities throughout the week and schedule in at least 2 energy boosting activities. So making sure you're doing those boosters that recharge your battery and spreading out the drainers that just charge your battery. Social and meaningful activity. This is another big one, and contributes to the reason why a lot of people who have whiplash association disorder and concussion actually become very depressed, is because they can't socialize, because socialization is too difficult for them. Socializing is too difficult for them. Because it causes symptoms. So you want to make sure that you're putting these into your life. Go for a walk or a cup of tea with somebody that's calm in your life, that after you meet with them, you feel good and energized. It's not just kind of loud and obnoxious and draining you of all your energy. Make time for creative activities is a good one, at least every other week. Exercise. Exercise is huge. Exercise is medicine. Say it again. I learned this in a concussion course. When you're recovering from a concussion, exercise is your medicine. It will greatly improve the speed at which you recover. I say this with a caveat that you have to exercise below your sub-symptom threshold, which for some of you might be very difficult to do. And this might mean you can go for a 15-minute walk and then you have to take a break for 5 minutes. And then you can walk for 15 minutes back to your house. And we'll go through in another video how you can improve this so you can get back up to your cardio so that you're not exacerbating your symptoms and draining that battery through exercise. There is a way to do it. One of the best things that you can do for exercise is a stationary bike. And that's because if you're running or using the elliptical or something like that, it will present symptoms in terms if you have any vestibular problems with like balance or eyesight. And so a stationary bike is really good for that. Go to the gym or get a bike trainer. I think you can get one for like $150 from Canadian Tire and put it on an existing bike. Plan to attend gym to ride the stationary bike for 15 minutes. Do your physiotherapy exercises at the gym on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. So physiotherapy 3 times a week minimum, 3 times per day. Every day would be best. And then challenging your thoughts. So another issue with this injury is that it can become this like dark tunnel where you fear that you're never going to get better. And so you need to challenge your thoughts depending on whatever thought you're having. Perhaps that's one, perhaps it's a different one. Don't accept those unhelpful thoughts as facts. Don't believe that what your brain is telling you is something that is true. Be a detective. Do some cognitive behavioral therapy, as we call it. If you're having a thought that is, I'm never going to get better, you're going to write that thought down on a piece of paper, and you're going to list all the facts that support this thought, the evidence for the thought. So I'm not going to get better because it's been 6 months, 8 months, and I'm still severely injured and I don't have a normal life. Okay, so perhaps that's evidence to support the thought. And then on the flip side of the page, you're going to list all of the facts that are evidence against that thought, that I am never going to get better. And evidence such as that might be, I might not be fully recovered yet, but I have greatly improved since 6 or 8 months ago. I'm doing all of these things to help my recovery. I'm watching this video that is planning my wellness checklist that is going to make sure I'm doing the things that I need to be doing to recover from this injury. And then you're going to combine these two things to come up with a more balanced framework that you will believe, that ultimately challenges that false statement that you had. So perhaps it's like, I'm not better yet, but I am way better than I was 6 months ago. If you don't think you are, it might be helpful to get a friend to help you with this, or a family member because they will probably more easily remember than you will what your life was like 6 months ago. And they can say like, look, you couldn't go for a walk for more than 10 minutes without getting symptoms. You couldn't walk and talk on the phone on a normal day. Now you can walk and talk on the phone after a work day. And you see the trend continue upward. So even though you're not better yet, you are getting better, and it might be slower than you had hoped, but you will get better. So that's the example from GF Strong. Here's the one that I put together for myself. Similar but slightly different. Stress and anxiety management. So for me, taking breaks was huge. A lot of A-type personality people like myself are not good at taking breaks. So need to do that. Meditate a minimum of 3 times per week per 10 minutes, even if you're feeling good. So that's the other caveat here, is that a lot of times you'll find that things are going well and then they're not going well. And it could be, at least for me, it was that things were going well, so you kind of just threw all this out the window and you're like, oh, I don't have an injury anymore. You kind of forget about it. And then things start to go not so well. And then you bring yourself back to these things that you were supposed to be doing. Are you doing them? Probably not. So taking those breaks and meditating, even when things are going well, is really important, because you want to keep going, keep climbing that ladder in this recovery. Exercise is medicine. Exercise a minimum of 3 times a week per 30 minutes. And then for me, I had a lot of neck tension and right side of my body issues. And if people are interested, I can post as to how I recovered, or I'm still recovering from that. And for me, a lot of it was breathing into the side of my body, because I had a repetitive pattern of kind of like crunching like this, and everything over here would tighten up. So a lot of it was just like relaxing and expanding and breathing into it. Sleep, for me, rumination after 15 minutes. I had to get out of bed. Try body scan meditation first. If that didn't work, then make tea and read a boring book, but don't stress about it. You're not going to sleep every once in a while. If you're having a lot of issues with sleep, you can talk to your doctor about it. I had to go on medication to be able to sleep properly. Like I said, again, the brain injury can disrupt the signals that your brain is supposed to be getting to sleep and to stay asleep. So I had both problems getting to sleep and staying asleep. I had to go on medication for a while to get that sorted out, until I got to a point in my recovery where I could get off of it. Challenging your thoughts, keeping general awareness of the thoughts that I'm having. Ask if the narrative that I am have in my head is working for me. How is it working for me? Explore other possibilities that could be true, that are more positive. Can I create a more balanced narrative about the situation? Recognize that your brain creates your reality, and you can choose to believe a more positive possibility. So if there's a situation where you don't really know what is true, sometimes your brain just automatically fills in those gaps of those things that you don't know into negative things. Well, you have the power in your head to choose the positive reasoning and facts for things. And if there's no difference between the two, then accept your own mental health, then you might as well be choosing the positive one. Menu of boosters. So hopefully all of you have this. Minimum of 2 boosters per day, office or home. This was difficult for me to do, incorporate in the office, and actually took quite a bit of planning. I had to figure out where I was doing my boosters. Eventually I found an empty stairwell and went up to the top near the mechanical room, and would take my breaks there because I had to do them more frequently. Make sure that you're leaving your desk during lunch. So making sure that you're doing those things, and consider how that they will be implemented if you are returning to work. Scheduling them in Outlook is another really good one. Social engagement, so making sure that you are not feeling socially isolated. I had a minimum of 2 social activities per week, so going to hang out with my friend Anna, or having dinner with my girlfriends counted. And then specifically around social engagement, I had trouble of setting boundaries when discussions or social conversations became too heated or loud, in that I didn't want to leave because of FOMO. And so it was really important for me to put this on here and be like, look, make an excuse to leave when things get heated, or you're presenting yourself with symptoms. Don't push through them because you're having a good time. Or leave for a period of time and say you have to make a call, go take a walk. Pre-decide how and when and where your breaks will be taken during these social activities. Diet, for me, like I said, eating before I get hungry was huge, and eating regular meals with snacks. Days where I had stressful meetings, drink decaf. So I hear this a lot on Reddit forums that coffee can exacerbate your headache symptoms. So I had to quit coffee for a little while. It made my headaches worse for the first 2 or 3 days, and then it made it better. And then I slowly worked up to drinking a half caffeinated coffee, which I do now. And then where I have stressful meetings and I might be a little bit more anxious at work, I'll drink decaf. And so the purpose for this wellness checklist is that you have this posted on your fridge or your wall. And when things are not going so well, you can review this checklist and say to yourself, look, if things aren't going well right now, or I'm having a crash, or I'm having a bad week, have I been doing these things? And if you haven't been doing, I'm sure one of these things has not been going very well for you. If that's the case, and it's a reminder to say, like, look, I've got to take this seriously. I have a brain injury. Okay. That's it for now, and hopefully see you guys on the next one.